Hey guys, Chris Oak coming to you from the Man Cave. The Man Cave is where I do all my writing and some of my video editing as well. I edited Wounded right here. I edited Thought on Chain right here. Portions of Cowboy Lucky the Last Stand were edited here. But they're all written here. And this is where I work. So we're going to do some behind the scenes slash instructional videos slash tutorials, whatever you want to call it. Um, about what we do in production. I'm gonna focus on screenwriting for these for the Man Cave, and hence why we're here. So, screenwriting. Let's start with this, and this will be a series of them. The first one, we're gonna tackle a word that no one likes. At least I don't. I guess I shouldn't speak for all screenwriters, but exposition. Exposition is the really boring thing when it comes to storytelling. I'm going to read the Wikipedia definition of exposition. Exposition is the portion of a story that introduces important background information to the audience. For example, information about the setting, events occurring before the main plot occurs, characters' backstories, etc. All right, a great example of common exposition would be when the bad guy in James Bond tells you out of nowhere and stops the movie called his plan when he should be just killing James Bond. And exposition can be when that story, that character gives you like, well, when I was 12, my father died, and blah, 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 and they stop the movie and tell the story or whatever. That could be exposition. Exposition is boring. Usually that's when you go pee when you're watching the movies. And just as much as audiences don't care for exposition, writers typically don't like to write it. At least I don't. And maybe, again, I shouldn't speak for all. I don't like writing exposition. So I think it's boring and it's stupid and it stops the movie cold. But a lot of times you need the information. And you have to have the information for the story to be cohesive and be there. So how do you get around exposition? What do you do with it? If you don't like it, well, there's one way you can do it, is the tried and true way of just do it, which is like your James Bond villain. There's the whole thing in the old cop shows where, well, as you know, they used to blah blah blah, and they'll give this information. And you can do some cheesy stuff like that. And let me backtrack for 1 second. An example of a movie bogged down in exposition, to me, a great example of exposition just destroying a movie, was Tron Legacy. If you went and saw Tron Legacy, it was so slow and it was so boring. Even though it was visually great, it was perfectly visually made and had good performances for the most part. And you would think, well, it should have been great, right? Well, no. The reason it sucked is because they spent the whole movie talking about stuff instead of showing you stuff. And you got a little bitty, electrical cycle scene when you wanted to see like lots of that. Well, they just spent the whole time talking about exposition. That's exposition of just what happened to Tron, what happened to Flynn, what happened, and that really slowed down and bored the movie for you. So, my favorite way of handling exposition is, I guess I would call it the Tarantino style, is either telling a movie out of order, non-linear storytelling, or to even chapter breaks is another one. If you watch Wounded and you watch The Thought on Chain, they actually are non-linear, and they're chapters. They're separating the chapters. Well, I did that because I like the style, and also it makes exposition a lot easier to deal with and give information. I can give information when I want to, in the way I want to. And with Wounded, for instance, I went ahead and just was creative with it, and I started breaking the fourth wall. And like the whole story, if you watch Wounded, between about Iraq, that Kills gives, and he shows up with Roy, shows up out of nowhere. It totally breaks reality, but that scene was a creative way to try and give exposition and not be boring. So you had Kills breaking the fourth wall, and then you had Roy showing up out of nowhere where he shouldn't have been there. And another scene in that movie where he had exposition was when Eder, the cop, is already dead, and so is the girl, Jennifer, the girlfriend to kills. They're both dead, but kills breaks the fourth wall and is telling the story, and they show up and they're already dead. So it's totally, fictional that they show up. And the reason why I did that is to give you information and not make it be boring. It bogs down the movie. So that's a couple creative examples of how to deal with it. Another way, in a new script I just wrote called Domain, a horror picture, I chose to deal with exposition at the very beginning. So, in other words, there's a scene at the very beginning where you have this character gives this one big speech, and it just sets up everything you need to know right at the front. So I get it over with, and the way I wrote it, it tries to be artsy. It's like some artsy shots and stuff. So that was where, and once you got the information, you didn't need any more for the rest of the movie. You had enough there to keep you going. And the key point is, the point I'm trying to make, you take anything from this, tell your story through action and show the viewer the story. Show what happens. Show as much as possible and let the movie tell the story in that time that they're watching it, and not have so much stuff that has to be explained for this movie to make sense. That's where it all falls apart if you don't do that. Look at the Star Wars prequels versus the originals. All you need to know was that there was a war, and that Vader killed Luke's dad, and then he went, and they told the story as you went. Well, with the prequels, you had all this convoluted stuff, and you had this bureaucracy and that bureaucracy and all this exposition, and it didn't work. That was one of the reasons why the prequels just don't work. It was bogged in exposition. Exposition is boring. Limit it and find a creative way to tell what you do have to tell. That's my example of how to deal with it. Non-linear, chapter breaks, break the fourth wall. Those are how I chose to deal with it. Get it all out of the open in the front. Limit it. Show the story. Tell the story in the moment. And that way you can overcome exposition. And great homework for you to do. Go watch Tron Legacy and watch how much time they spend talking about stuff that happened instead of showing you the current movie. And you'll see why that movie is so boring. That's your homework assignment. All right. More screenwriting lessons coming up hopefully soon. So take care. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks. Bye.